Welcome along. It is our pleasure to welcome Professor Sir David Spiegelhalter, world-famous statistician and fellow of the Churchill College at Cambridge, where he spent more than a decade as the Winton professor at their statistical laboratory. Sir David is the author of The Art of Statistics, amongst many books, including The Art of Uncertainty, which is scheduled for a March 2025 release, so be on the lookout for that. We're not going to query him on divulging too much information on the new book, but keep your eyes out for that. David, thank you for agreeing to do this and being a guest on our interview series at the Huddle Breakdown.
Yeah, I'm really delighted. Anxious and nervous, I suppose, but we got to face these things.
Well, we're going to query you on all levels of detail of soccer analytics, football analytics, and then test you at the end.
Right, so, fine. You can try.
Well, it's not common. Well, part of what we're trying to do with this interview series is to get serious, accomplished people in the analytics space or in the statistics space. So we haven't had a lot of access to someone with your level of expertise. So I'm selfish. I'm going to use this opportunity to ask a question that hypothetically could relate to someone in my circumstances. I want to stress this is hypothetical. So let's assume that there's a mildly overweight 49-year-old male, and he's married to, way out of his league, beautiful 47-year-old female, and they're poised to become empty nesters. Is that a term that's colloquial in the UK? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So our kids are reaching adulthood, and this hypothetical male hopes to capitalize on this empty house with post-war levels of sex when the kids leave the house. So given the potential for early ovulation, cycle fertilization, does this hypothetical male have higher or lower odds of having a male child? Or does Celtic have a higher chance of winning the Champions League in the next 2 years? So given your expertise in the breadth, can you give me an answer to that question?
I would say probably Celtic is on that one, because having frequent sex does increase the chance of having a boy. And that's what I believe, and many others believe, is the reason why there's more boys born at the end of wars, something that's shown in the UK and America repeatedly throughout history. And at other times, in fact, also around 1973, when there was also a peak in boys, because that was also the peak of sexual activity in this country, as far as I can see. I was 20, but it has absolutely nothing to do with it at all. And so I would say, the normal chance for a boy is about 52 to 48, and it's only raised by a little bit by having a lot of sex and therefore being more likely to conceive early on in the cycle, in a woman's cycle. And so I would still say you're only talking between 50 and 60% chance of having a boy. And I would assume, in my state of complete ignorance, that the chance of Celtic winning a championship over the next 2 years. Oh, wait, sorry, which championship?
Champions League.
Oh, Champions League. Oh, well, sorry, I thought you meant Scottish. Okay. Oh, well, I don't know about that. No. I would just carry on trying to have a boy if I were you.
Oh, my. Well, see, you got my hopes up and then you deflated me. And I did have one confession to make, and I know this is going to hit home for you, David. And my wife would be horrified if she knew I was about to say this, but I did once have sex during an episode, with my wife, by the way, of Game of Thrones. So I just wanted to share that as along the lines of this questioning. But yes, Sex by Numbers, famous book that David wrote. So that's why I want to link these together. It's a very serious work. It's not
it's a very serious work of statistics. Goodness me.
Okay, so David, you probably don't appreciate it, but I go by the moniker Celtic by Numbers on social media. And finding out that you'd written a book called Sex by Numbers, it just made me realize I've just wasted so much of my life on the wrong topic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to launch into a serious question now. Now that we've gotten the humor out of the way and capitalize on your expertise. So we recently had, I don't know if you're familiar with or even know David Sumter. He's an Oxford guy, but he's the author of a book called Soccermatics. We recently talked to him, and I shared an anecdote with him on there there about an obstetrician that you may have heard of him, Ignaz Semmelweis. He was the first guy that realized, wash your hands.
Yeah, right? Very famous, very famous.
1847. Took how many years until doctors relented and said, hey, it's a good idea to wash your hands. And just as like a personal vignette within the realm of analytics, I kind of had that kind of realization. I was one of the dumb doctors that realized about 20 years ago that with what I'm doing in analytics, I should have been paying attention to complex system science. Something that was really, again, I'm preaching to the choir here, someone that's going to know far more about this than I am. But, starting with Mandelbrot, Purbach, Geoffrey West, someone you may know.
No, the stuff I do is much simpler than that. Much simpler.
That my question was going to be more so on the idea of adoption of new ideas.
Yeah,
I know you're heavily involved with machine learning, AI. Love to hear your latest sense of where that is relative to hype, because I know at the end part of your book, Art of Statistics, you addressed that, but that's all 3 years ago already. And it's been a wild 3 years in AI. Is NVIDIA's market capitalization in alignment with where you see industry trends going in the adoption phase of what's actually going on, or kind of where are we at in the life cycle of using it within the context of analytics?
Okay, well, there's a lot there. I mean, essentially, my background's in statistics, although I have worked in AI. I was working on uncertainty in artificial intelligence, which is my particular interest 40 years ago. I mean, the first conference in international conferences on uncertainty in artificial intelligence, the UAI conferences, started nearly 40 years ago, which I was involved in. So people have been thinking about this stuff for a long time. Of course, it's all, as you said, come on massively over the last 5 years. And so, the availability, the extraordinary capacity of some of these systems. However, my particular interest still is in uncertainty. And if we want to just talk about that now, I mean, I use large language models a lot. I use them in writing this book. I use them for all sorts of purposes. I use them for coding. I use them for summarizing ideas, in critiquing papers. They're fantastic, extraordinary. However, they're absolutely rubbish at expressing their own uncertainty. They make absolute confident claims and just put a little print at the bottom. Oh, I may be wrong. I mean, last week I was asked, I wanted some statistics of the year, interesting ones. So I asked a large language model, give me some good statistics for last year. It gave me some crackers. So I asked, this one I picked out, where did it come from? And they said, well, I made it up.
We hope you enjoyed this free preview from all of us here at the Huddle Breakdown. We know you have options and we really appreciate you tuning in. To hear the rest of this episode and for much more Huddle Breakdown content, head on over to www.huddlebreakdown.com. We hope you consider subscribing. Thank you.